Welcome to the Cutie Count, where we tally up the numbers in all your favorite pony media. I'm some horse on the internet, and today we're looking at everything the Cutie Mark Crusaders tried in order to obtain their cutie marks in Friendship is Magic. In a show already aimed at a younger female audience, it was an interesting choice for Friendship is Magic to expand the cast to include a group of even younger characters. Apple Bloom, Sweetie Belle, and Scootaloo are three young fillies from Ponyville who separate themselves from the main cast by the fact that they don't have cutie marks, a symbol of maturity amongst ponies and a representation of what makes them unique as individuals. The girls, collectively named the Cutie Mark Crusaders, spend the first half of the series trying out a variety of activities to try to find their passion. To mixed success, but always with an infectious earnestness that makes them a joy to watch. Throughout the series, the girls' approaches to figuring out their life goals is less a well-formulated list and more throwing taffy at the wall to see what sticks, which is why I'm here to count them up. Will these blank check children make their mark on the world, or are they just a bunch of rebels without a cause? Let's find out and count them up. The search begins with a bell. A class of young ponies are sitting at attention at the Ponyville schoolhouse when their teacher, Miss Cheerily, announces the start of our first lesson.
Today we are going to be talking about cutie marks.
A cutie mark is a symbol that appears on the flank of every pony when he or she discovers that certain something that makes them special. Miss Cheerily explains that her cutie mark of 3 smiling flowers appeared after Cheerily decided to become a teacher, and that the flowers represent the joy of learning that she hoped to bring to her students. A bright-eyed student named Apple Bloom happily gets the let out to take some notes, but some of the other fillies aren't quite so enthusiastic. Another student named Diamond Tiara tricks Apple Bloom into reaching for a blank piece of paper, but it gets intercepted by Miss Cheerily, who wants to know what burn was so savage that it couldn't wait until after class.
It's blank.
Remind you of any pony.
Apple Bloom will remember this. Although this is the first episode of the series to give Apple Bloom a central focus, she did make an earlier appearance in both the first episode and as the voice of reason in Bridal Gossip. After school lets out, Apple Bloom trudges out of the classroom in a funk so bad that not even a peppermint stick from friend and fellow Blank Flank Twist can pull her out of it. She's passed by note passer Diamond Tiara and her braided buddy Silver Spoon, who flaunt their cutie marks at her like a couple of mean girls and invite her to her party this weekend. The party in question is Diamond Tiara's Quinceañera, a coming-of-age party to celebrate her new cutie mark and a play on quinceañera, a female coming-of-age ceremony practiced in many Spanish-speaking countries. Back at the apple farm, Apple Bloom gets the birds and the bees talk from her big sister Applejack, who says that a cutie mark comes when it's ready and that no amount of extracurricular grinding will make it come any sooner. She's nearly resigned herself to being a blank flank for the rest of her life when suddenly a light bulb goes off. Her entire family, Applejack, Big Mac, and Granny Smith, all have apple cutie marks from when they decided to work for the family farm, so Apple Bloom throws her bow into the ring and starts slinging apples, literally and figuratively, for the family business. Compared to her later schemes, this one seems downright pedestrian, but there's still plenty of time for it to go off the rails. Things go south pretty quickly, and Big Sis gets tired enough of her hard selling to send her home. Later that day, Rainbow Dash finds her sulking and tells her that, like everything else she does, she got her cutie mark fast. Apple Bloom buys into the program, and Dash takes her under her wing, where we get our first big montage of the series. She starts with juggling, managing an impressive 6-ball cascade on one hoof before wiping out. Her hang gliding career fails to get off the ground, and karate practice hits a rough spot. I'd say she did the best job kite flying until a stray gust snaps the shoddy craftsmanship of her SLK. I got a unicorn who can help you with that. Never one to end practice with a cooldown, Dash ends the montage with a spot of something called Ultra Pony Roller Derby, a horseplay variant of roller derby which I always thought was crazy dangerous, but must not be so bad if Apple Bloom can wheel her way out of a 3-full pileup. Things aren't going well at Camp Dash, so AB jumps at the chance to ditch her when Pinkie offers to help her earn her cutie mark in eating cupcakes. But there's no such thing as a free lunch, and Apple Bloom gets immediately roped into a 22-second baking montage just long enough to realize that she probably won't be getting that Food Network show. Destitute and full of charcoal cookies, she resigns herself not to go to the quinceañera and exits the kitchen to leave, only to walk right into the third act? What? It's already time for the party, hosted right on time by the party pony herself. This party's got everything. Bumpin' music, questionable food, and a pony guest trying to rock the floppy flower hat from the 1990 sitcom Blossom. But nothing seems to be able to keep her from Scooby-Dooing whatever it takes to get out of this awkward social situation. That is, nothing except a cross-check from her big sister that plows her right back into the jaws of the alpha bullies. She bluffs about her blank flank and tries to sidestep them, only to fall headfirst into the most embarrassing situation imaginable. With Apple Bloom feeling completely Von trapped, 2 new characters come to her rescue.
You got a problem with blank flanks?
Sweetie Belle the Unicorn and Scootaloo the Pegasus are the 2 other main characters who join Apple Bloom on her journey of self-discovery, brought together by one key similarity.
You don't have your cutie marks either?
The two of them clap back at Tiara and Silver Spoon by pointing out their blank flank is a blank check, a carte blanche to explore all kinds of things to find their true talent. It's an inspiring speech and basically spells out the thesis these girls live by. Try everything. Everybody claps, and the filly of the hour sulks away to brood at the top of the stairs. Fun fact, even though you don't meet them until this scene, you could spot Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo making early bird cameos in the first episode, hiding under the table from Nightmare Moon. The three of them convene at a back table and talk more mad crap about Diamond Tiara. Apple Bloom suggests they work together to earn their cutie marks, like some kind of suicide squad. The name they land on is much better.
How about the Cutie Mark Crusaders? It's perfect!
From this point on, the Cutie Mark Crusaders are nearly inseparable for the rest of the series. Get ready, because from here on out, you're going to hear a lot of yelling. We meet up with the Crusaders in Stairmaster, where an impromptu slumber party at Fluttershy's cottage already has Bird Horse on the ropes. She tries to calm them down by suggesting honestly a wonderful sleepover schedule, but the Crusaders have already spun off into their own weather pattern. They try their hand at becoming Cutie Mark creature catchers when Sweetie Belle goes one-on-one with Dupless the Magic Carpet. A chase ensues, which gets put on pause when Sweetie Belle triple D's a table into submission. They take a quick whack at bringing it back to life with a little Cutie Mark Crusader carpentry, but Apple Bloom implements a mercy kill rule pretty quick. At this point in the night, it's like herding a group of cats, so Fluttershy plucks them from the fireplace and sends them to bed. They claim to want to be Cutie Mark Crusader coal miners, but I'm not giving them credit for that one. There's respect for the working man, and then there's dicking around in Fluttershy's chimney. Their nighttime lullaby catches a lot more heat than normal, and the Crusaders sneak out in the ensuing chaos, along with most of Fluttershy's chickens. It's time to engage Operation Chicken Herders, but before they can get the entire proclamation out, Fluttershy has already rounded up most of them. Later that night, the girls notice that life has found a way, and chicken herding becomes chicken rescue, so they sneak back out into the ever-free forest. Off the beaten path, Apple Bloom takes a minute to give Scootaloo a new nickname.
Now I know how to call a chicken. Skidaloo!
I'm sure it won't stick. She and the roasted chicken get into a petty spat to try to earn their cutie marks in arguing, an idea that Sweetie Belle shuts down in the funniest way possible.
What would the cutie mark of some pony whose talent is arguing even look like? Girls?
I love this bit of observational humor, and apparently other fans did too, since it spawned a couple of edits that imagine what a cutie mark in arguing would look like, usually with a dig at 4chan or the US government. There's this whole plot about the gang getting mixed up with a cockatrice that turns people to stone, but it scares the girls too stiff to try any more cutie methods that night, so on we go. The very next episode, Applejack surprises the Crusaders with their very own Clubhouse, an Apple Family treehouse that AJ used when she was a filly. It's a bit of a fixer-upper, but one commercial break later, they've got themselves a brand new hangout. This clubhouse serves as the home base for the Crusaders during the bulk of their misadventures, and it's constantly filled with knickknacks, junk, and all kinds of callbacks to previous adventures if you're looking for them. Speaking of which, it's time for another montage. It starts in the barn, where the girls feed the Apple Family pigs and get trampled for their efforts. Trying to make taffy with the cake's industrial-sized taffy puller brings them closer together. Things get a little hairy when they try their hooves at main styling, and the girls take a deck to the dome when they try to earn their cutie marks in telepathy. I've seen a few people confused about what they're doing here. These symbols are a variant of Zener cards, a deck of playing cards developed by Carl Zener and J.B. Rind in the 1930s to try to test for the existence of ESP. It didn't go well. Their attempt at mountain climbing goes a little over the top, and their scuba diving adventure gets interrupted by a scary-ass octopus. No thank you. They finish with a short stint as librarians, buried under a pile of Twilight's books that would put my college roommate to shame when they're interrupted by their teacher, who suggests they should stick to things that they like doing by joining the school talent show. The girls seem into it, and if you know what's coming, you would be too. Though they settle pretty quickly on an epic musical number, there's some confusion about how to divvy up responsibility. Apple Bloom volunteers Sweetie Belle as the group's lead vocalist on account of her lovely singing voice, which we got to hear earlier in the episode. Sweetie Belle taps out from stage fright and instead elects to do costume and set design, taking after her older sister. Scootaloo takes up singing duties in her place, forgoing her natural athleticism in favor of a crazy rock ballad, which leaves Apple Bloom with designing the show's choreography, which she says is basically the same as Kung Fu, which she's already a fan of. Yeah, sure thing, hon. This lingering idea that the girls already had their true talents, just assigned to the wrong filly, is an idea that was never revisited, to the ire of some fans, but given how the story ends, I'm okay with that. Applejack gets a horrified peek at the performance, but she doesn't have the guts to tell them about all the cringe coming their way, so she and Twilight let them take their marks, and I'm gonna be honest with you, this song rips.
Listen up, 'cause here's our story. I'm gonna sing it very loud.
The Cutie Mark Crusaders song is a power ballad written by Daniel Ingram, one of the show's main composers, and it takes inspiration from its melody and guitar breakdown from a couple of 80s ballads, most notably Cutting Crew's 1986 hit I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. And the less you look into the inspiration for that song, the better. This is also the first time we get a sense of the larger mantra of the Crusaders, that it's okay to embarrass yourself as a kid. The entire 2-minute performance is a start-to-finish show, and I'm sure they didn't mean to take home the award for Best Comedy Act, but childhood is all about making mistakes, and let me tell you, they're gonna make a whole lot more before the end of this. Case in point, at the top of the Cutie Mark Chronicles, the girls have a pretty hairy harness malfunction while ziplining, and burn and crash to the ground below. Later in Season 2, we catch back up with the Crusaders at the top of the Cutie Pox, workshopping names for their new bowling team. They give it a spin and cause some mayhem in the process, but with one exception, creatures without fingers aren't exactly made for throwing around heavy balls. Apple Bloom takes the latest failure especially hard, to the point that no amount of parties or sweets or fancy hats can bring Apple's bloom back. Wanting to be alone, she wanders into the Everfree forest, where she trips on her root and chips a tooth in the process. Luckily, everyone's favorite striped shaman is here to fix her up. They head on back to Sakura's cottage, where she fixes Apple Bloom's tooth and gives a suspiciously familiar lecture on the value of waiting. Sakura was just in the middle of making a potion out of Heart's Desire, a plant that Apple Bloom reasons might be able to help her with her whole Cutie Mark conundrum. Sakura steps out to grab some more amethyst, and a sinister zoom lets us know that something crazy's about to go down. Back at the schoolyard, Apple Bloom wastes no time flashing her brights everywhere because she's rocking a brand new Cutie Mark.
Is it an O? Is your talent spelling?
Nah, Scoot, it's Loop-de-Hoop, a convenient placeholder name for hula hooping, since Whammo has owned the trademark on its actual name since 1958. Of course, we all know this is a side effect of the potion she threw together out of Sakura's Heart's Desire, which posed an interesting dilemma when it came to the Cutie Count. I could just count the Heart's Desire potion as a single attempt to be done with it, since everything that goes down later is really just a result of shoddy potion making, but I know you guys like big numbers, so I'm gonna be a little lax here and count every little thing I see. Apple Bloom wastes no time showing off to all her schoolmates, with a flaunty new confidence that doesn't sit well with everyone. Apple Bloom is voiced by Michelle Kreber, who was only 11 when Friendship is Magic premiered, but she'd been doing voiceover work since she was 5 years old. Her first voiceover role was for Lucy on Peanuts Motion Comics, a 2008 web series also starring her fellow Crusader Claire Corlett and co-directed by Jason Thiessen, the first supervising director of Friendship is Magic. But don't confuse her with Silver Spoon. By the time she auditioned, Michelle had already worked up an extensive theater resume, including roles in Annie, A Christmas Carol, and The Wizard of Oz. She even had a bit part in an episode of Supernatural. Damn. After a decent amount of showboating, the hoop hits the fan when another co-pilot enters the picture. It's a second Cutie Mark, this time in plate spinning. Diamond Tiara seizes the lull in all the hoopla to call BS, but with the help of some props, Apple Bloom takes to becoming a one-pony circus act like she'd been marching Parasprites her whole life. She comes home later that night absolutely beat from just all the attention she's been getting. It's so stressful. Proud older sister AJ can't sleep with all the racket going on down the hall, so she peeks into Apple Bloom's room to give her the what for, only to find her sister with a third Cutie Mark, tap dancing up a storm and begging to be put out of her misery. They take Pony Davis Jr. over to Twilight's place, where the prognosis isn't good.
Random cutie marks appeared all over the ponies' bodies, causing them to perform all the talents that came with them.
Things only get worse when Cutie Mark number 4 has her talking like my college roommate.
Qu'est-ce que c'est? Je parle français? My sister's speaking it fancy.
Mon français était pour rien. Fun fact, Michelle Kreber is actually 1/4 French on her mother's side, and spoke enough French to do that line read without too much trouble. Knowing that Sakura is the only one who can fix things, they head into town to track her down. On their way, Apple Bloom pursues some more career opportunities. She continues with some sculpting and chimney sweeping, followed by a speedrun of Weird Al's greatest hits. After that, she hits up lion taming, chess, fencing, and a bit of tightrope walking. I'm sensing a bit of a theme here. I won't be counting her hang gliding since she tried that last season and we all know how that worked out. By the time she's brushing up on college-level calculus, the whole town has barricaded themselves inside in fear. But the gang does eventually track down Sakura, who brought some seeds of truth to help get Miss Pants on Fire back under control, provided she can fess up to swiping her potion in the first place. She comes clean and the cutie marks disappear, but getting her over the edge is like pulling teeth, and we get a few more shenanigans on the way out, including mad gains, window washing, and this bizarre spin cycle, like she were helping the Looney Tunes get ready for a basketball game. Wow, that was a lot. Can we maybe turn things down a bit? Later in the season, a dejected Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo walk out of the schoolhouse. These long faces are because Featherweight just became the latest member of their class to earn a cutie mark. It seems like this search for a cutie mark might be a lost cause until Apple Bloom shows up with the answer to all their problems. She throws down a copy of the school's newspaper, the Full Free Press. Problem is, she didn't exactly leave any instructions, so Sweetie and Scoots play a makeshift game of props, trying to figure out exactly what's so special about this newspaper. They try insulating some packages for rarity, helping out with a bird's nest, and even a bit of paper boating, all of which leave them pretty washed up. Sweetie Belle is voiced by Claire Corlett in one of her first acting roles. She knew Michelle Kreber from her time voicing Sally on Peanuts Motion Comics, and the two of them became good friends, making multiple appearances on each other's YouTube channels. Scootaloo is voiced by Madeline Peters, who landed the role in part due to her work on Martha Speaks, a show about a talking dog that also starred Tabitha St. Germain and Kathleen Barr and was composed by Vancouver's own Daniel Ingram. These days, she stayed largely out of the limelight, save for a couple of vocal performances in a few indie games. If you're out there, Madeline, I hope you're doing okay. They confront Apple Bloom back at the Clubhouse about her terrible non-advice.
We tried everything from paper mache to making bird's nests and nothing worked.
And even though we don't actually see them trying out paper mache, they mention it by name, so I'm okay with putting it on the count. Apple Bloom responds with, "No, you dinguses, we can get our cutie marks in journalism." Yeah, Ponyville Confidential is the school newspaper episode, and if it sounds like I'm not terribly excited, you might be onto something. If there's one recurring episode plot I see in more kids shows than any other, it's the one about the school newspaper. I've seen it in everything from Ed, Edd n Eddy to Hey Arnold, and while it's never a bad episode, I kind of feel like if you've seen one, you've seen them all. The main characters volunteer for their school newspaper, but in an effort to juice readership, they stoop to spying on their neighbors or lying about their friends. But the girls get to cross a degree in journalism off their list, and we all get spared the possibility of a Citizen Kane remake starring Diamond Tiara. Season 3 is largely a quiet season for the Crusaders, though we do get a couple close calls here and there. Scootaloo has a near miss with an oil spill while sabotaging their parade float, and they're all ready to go skydiving when they get intercepted by Spike the Pet Whisperer. He tries to pawn the Gummy Gang off on the Crusaders by suggesting they get their cutie marks in critter sitting, and despite how scummy that sounds, the girls are down for it. Spike does get what he paid for though when he comes back later to a complete zoo. After the scripts for Season 3 were locked, submitted, and approved for production, director M.A. Larson was informed that the series would continue past the original 65-episode order. As such, it's a small logical leap to assume that the showrunners had no intention of resolving the Crusaders' story arc, as a conclusion had not been submitted prior to the additional season order. With seasons 4 and especially 5, there was a noticeably renewed focus in the story arc of 3 girls in search of a cutie mark, and a general uptick in the energy and enthusiasm. This is immediately apparent in the season 4 episode Flight to the Finish. Having won the Crystal Empire the right to host the Equestria Games, Ponyville receives a visit from the head of the games to tell them about a great opportunity. All they have to do is come up with a routine that shows off their town's spirit, and the Crusaders could win the right to carry their town's flag at the opening to the Equestria Games. This episode is especially notable for 2 things. First is the return of Diamond Tiara, the head school pony in charge, who has advanced from awkward rump-related schoolyard insults to really upsetting targeted mind games. When she tries to sabotage the Crusaders' routine by picking on Scootaloo's deep-seated fear of her inadequacy over her little chicken wings. We'll see more of her in a bit. The other is the episode's musical number, and to the surprise of no one, it's an absolute banger.
We're the toughest little ponies in town. Got the moves, got the mojo. No harder working ponies around.
Hearts as Strong as Horses acts as a reaffirmation of the Crusaders' core mantra, a confident anthem that places greater importance on the journey than the destination. It's also important for a reason that's slightly more inside Buckball. This is the first song in the series to feature the singing talents of all 3 of the Crusaders' voice actors, Michelle Kreber, Madeline Peters, and Claire Corlett. During the first few seasons of production, Claire's prepubescent performance as Sweetie Belle didn't lend itself well to the show's musical numbers, and her singing parts had to be performed by Apple Bloom's VA Michelle Kreber. This added context gives the reaffirmation ballad some additional weight, and after picking Scoots back up out of the dumps, the girls absolutely smashed their routine audition. No cutie marks, but sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'll make a quick stop off at Pinkie Apple Pie to point out a quick line from Apple Bloom before the Apple family plus Pinkie travel to see the family historian, Goldie Delicious. AJ mentions that they need to show Pinkie that they're a well-oiled family unit, and Apple Bloom's got plans for that.
I'll bet my future cutie mark's gonna be a picture of me being the best behaved pony ever. That's how good I'm gonna be.
And you know what? As silly as it is, I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the count. She mentioned getting a cutie mark before they left, and even though she fell flat on her face, it's the thought that counts. We'll make another quick stop at Twilight Time, where the girls have enlisted the help of new Princess Twilight Sparkle to help teach them things that might snag them their own cutie mark, or at least teach them something in the process. Before getting blinded by the allure of sick grade school clout, we see Sweetie Belle try and fail to get accepted to a sorcerer's apprenticeship, Scootaloo throw instructions to the wind when it comes to unicycle repair, and Apple Bloom appears to have finally finally gotten over her traumatic experience in Cutie Pox to try her hand at potion making. They break a whole bunch of legs at the top of For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils when they put on their very own indie theater production, with just a little bit of Rarity's help. There's some discussion about which department they'll get Cutie Marks in, given that Sweetie Belle wrote the entire script, and it shows a little bit.
Forsooth and anon, I cometh forthwith and post haste with glad tidings, m'ladies.
But just like creating an entire episode of your favorite horse show, putting on a play is a communal effort, so I'll give them all credit for theater in general. They tried their best, and the theater kid in me knows that whole show was an absolute disaster behind the scenes. It's a fringe case, but I'll also give their cousin Babseed credit for getting her cutie mark and cutting hair off screen at the start of Bloom and Gloom. Babseed is Apple Bloom's cousin from Manhattan, a real spitfire with a Bronx accent that can rumble with the best of them. We saw her earlier at the Apple family reunion, and before that as a new kid who sided with the bullies to cover up her own insecurities. I haven't mentioned her before because she's not really the focus of 90% of Crusader activities, but she is an honorary Crusader, so I'll go ahead and put main cutting on the count. I'm not about to split hairs here, but I will split hairs about the extended nightmare Apple Bloom has later in the episode, brought on by strong feelings of being defeated after Babs crosses her finish line before they did. She imagines several nightmare scenarios where a new cutie mark completely upends her life, including a crash course in zapping Twitter mites with this awesome poltergeist-looking backpack. It's pretty freaky, but it ends with Apple Bloom receiving some sage advice from astral projection Luna, which means that she's been dreaming for most of this episode. As much as I hate using the word, most of this episode isn't really canon. It's just a big extended dream sequence. To me, it's a little different from the events of the Cutie Pox, since that was an actual disease that had real-world effects on the citizens of Ponyville. But I also wasn't sure what to do with that episode either. And this is just an overly elaborate April Fool's Day episode, so maybe don't think too hard about it. Especially because we're finally here! The big day, though none of them know it yet, and I'm willing to bet at least half of you probably cried at some point during Crusaders of the Lost Mark. So how does this monumental episode open?
Okay, Crusaders, back to the business of earning our cutie marks. Any suggestions?
Okay, whoa, we have to talk about this. This to-do list of Cutie Mark missions is one of several found decorating the Crusader Clubhouse over the course of the series. They usually used as set dressing, and the Crusaders use them to brainstorm ideas, map out areas of attack, and keep a physical record of everything they've tried thus far. They're usually not super detailed or important to the journey at hand, but there's something special about this one. This list contains pictographs of 14 different methods the girls have tried to earn their cutie marks, among which are actually several from scenes we've seen previously in the series, including chicken rescue, feeding pigs, making taffy, mountain climbing, scuba diving, library work, singing, bowling, and what I'll charitably call journalism. Because of this, and the fact that this list alone receives a 4-second close-up, I'll go ahead and add the remaining items to the count, including photography, cartography, solo dancing, group dancing, and sewing, bringing the total up to 56 items. Damn. The girls are about to choose a new plan of attack when their classmate Pipsqueak busts the door down to offer them a very special mission should they choose to accept it.
I'm running for Student Pony President! I was hoping you three would be my campaign managers!
Unfortunately for these presidential hopefuls, the only other horse in this race might ring some Liberty Bells. It's Diamond Tiara, led by her campaign manager Silver Spoon, and Miss Super Pack doesn't exactly have her class's best interests in mind.
I don't believe what I am hearing. I'm the only one you should be cheering. Pipsqueak, try Pipsqueak, don't you think?
This episode is the third of 4 musical episodes in the series, following Freaky Friday and How Pinkie Got Her Groove Back. We saw this as far back as the opening scene, when we get a wild reminder of just how much Michelle Kreber and the others have improved as singers over the course of the series.
We've been searching for our cutie marks for a while now.
The second song, entitled The Vote, is a knockdown drag-out political debate with a back-and-forth dialogue style partially inspired by writer Amy Keating Rogers' love for the song What Is This Feeling from the musical Wicked, which premiered in 2003. Diamond Tiara ends up losing in a landslide, even missing out on the vote of her only friend in Silver Spoon. Ouch. The Crusaders hide around the corner while Diamond Tiara gets absolutely chewed up and spit out by her mother, Spoiled Rich, and they overhear a really touching ballad about just how stuck she feels doing whatever her parents tell her. Overcome with guilt, they invite Diamond to the Cutie Mark Clubhouse, and even though she appreciates the gesture, you can still see remnants of her almost reflexive tendency to put other ponies down instead of accepting any kind of help. Chantel Strand is an amazing voice actor and series veteran who's been in the industry since the mid-90s, longer than I'd wager some pony fans have been alive. You may know her as a pocket VA for the Barbie franchise or Duchess Morbucks in the Powerpuff Girls anime, but she's also got a knack for showing up unannounced in everything from X-Men Evolutions to friggin' Hamtaro. Their interrupted by Pipsqueak crying about a veto for some new playground equipment, and Diamond Tiara, sinking back into her old habits, jumps at the chance to seize power during this new executive misstep. Or not. There's been some debate in the community about whether Diamond Tiara actually intended to do the right thing when she left the Crusader Clubhouse, or if she was swayed by the awesome chase song that is Light of Your Cutie Mark. I still don't know how I feel, so let me know what side you fall on in the comments. When I first watched this episode, her decision to go down the dark path is one of only a few times I've audibly gasped at children's media, and one of the moments that really cemented the thought that the writing and pacing of this whole show can be amazing when it wants to be. Diamond Tiara beats them back to the schoolhouse, and the girls brace for her inevitable cave to her mother's tyrannical wishes. But in a really cathartic turn of events, Diamond absolutely lays into her mom and brings her up to speed on some feelings that she wishes she'd acknowledged a long time ago.
These are the Cutie Mark Crusaders, and they are my friends!
She's decided to use her snobby power of influence for good, and in what's probably another top 10 song, assists President Pipsqueak in rebuilding the school's playground. She's also a lot nicer and chooses to celebrate her class's differences instead of shaming them for it. It's a great finale to a character arc that I didn't even know we'd get, and I'm pleasantly surprised at how effective it was that it happened to somebody who began the series as a one-dimensional bully. The Crusaders are taken aback too, and it causes them to reevaluate how they've been spending their free time.
So what do you say, Crusaders? Want to just focus on helping others find their cutie marks?
We'd seen hints of this earlier in the series, when the Crusaders set aside getting rodeo-related cutie marks to help Troubleshoes reevaluate his and Appaloosa's most wanted. One big hoof bump seems to cause a chain reaction, and in one big flash, their lives are changed forever.
We all got the same Cutie Mark! Cutie Mark Crusaders forever!
The marketing for Crusaders of the Lost Mark leading up to the episode was uncharacteristically sparse for a show made to sell toys, to the point that some fans put two and two together and guessed that we might be about to watch a very special episode. Their new cutie marks are distinct enough to set them apart as individuals, while also having a visual element that unifies them. Each of them has a backing crest with Neapolitan stripes of each of their main colors. Apple Bloom's is a heart inscribed within her family's apple motif, Sweetie Belle's is a star with an eighth note to symbolize her secondary love of singing, and Scootaloo's is a Pegasus wing underneath a lightning bolt, in allusion to her adoptive sister's rainbow cutie mark and her love for pure speed. The girls waste no time busting into a reprise of We'll Make Our Mark from the beginning of the episode. A crowd of ponies slowly builds behind them as they sing out their celebration, but the show also finds time to get really sentimental during the song's bridge, and I have never not cried at the two lines sung by Rarity and Dash.
You've inspired every pony around you, and you've inspired me too.
Back at the clubhouse, the girls reaffirm to themselves that the mark was worth the bites, and the three of them begin to get excited all over again. The crashing orchestration continues through a montage of some of the Crusaders' greatest hits, and the girls take a celebratory lap on their new cutie boards. The journey ends with the main six and all the Crusaders' classmates posing for their first picture with new cutie marks. Spike blows the photo off to Princess Celestia to tell her the good news, in a shot cribbed from the very first episode's theme song. I can't wait to see what they're gonna do next. Did the Crusaders' to-do list get enough of a workout to justify getting banned from every dojo, printing press, and bowling alley in Equestria? Well, I, for one, don't really... Oh, that's my cue to get to the numbers. By my count, the Cutie Mark Crusaders collectively tried 58 unique ideas for cashing in their blank flanks. Of these, Apple Bloom was involved in 44 schemes, Scootaloo had 25, Sweetie Belle had 24, and Babseed knocked out a hole-in-one on our first try, probably. With a total search time of 109 episodes, that left us with an attempt on average just about every other episode. I'll give the Golden Cutie Mark for coolest attempt collectively to the show-stopping performance in The Showstopper. It's absolutely hysterical how completely the entire stage falls apart, but it reminds them that making mistakes is what being a kid is all about, and it colors their search for the rest of the series. Bronze blank flank for the most half-baked attempt goes to whatever dirt devil picked up Apple Bloom during her 2-day bout with the Cutie Pox, since I'm not even sure what happened there. And that's it. Crusaders of the Lost Mark premiered on the 5-year anniversary of the premiere of Friendship is Magic, and while they finally figured their lives out, they would go on to help other ponies find their true talents over the remainder of the series. Until next time, I'm a horse with an unusual urge to categorize things. This has been the Cutie Count. Thanks a lot for watching this week's Cutie Count. In case it wasn't clear, this is a one-off episode for April Fool's Day. I love all the awesome work that the Dead Meat team has put out, and I had an absolute blast writing and editing this, but writing in someone's voice other than your own is hard. Were there any Cutie Mark ideas you wish they'd tried earlier in the series? Who's your favorite Crusader? Let me know in the comments. For me, it changes based on the day of the week. Thanks everyone, be good people.